Hello international friends, now comes the English translation of a video that was shot some days before, and it refers to the golden ring that was found in the tomb of Minos. The tomb is also a sanctuary, like a temple, and it is situated like about 600 meters away from what we know as the palace of Knossos. So it's a very important text consisting of many syllables and giving us a very big text. It's worth to go through it, so we will say the syllables one by one and then see what text we have. Okay, first, sa. You see, it's like a V, like stu, the sphere, re, the three-parted plants, re, and all together it gives a te. So sa, stu, re, te. Then these dots form up here a half moon. So it's a me, as we said again, re, re again, sa, and then all together te, and then you go here to the closest one, which is a red sphere. We've painted it red so that you can see it with more easiness. It's a stu. Then when it comes to this sign, you start from upwards to downwards. This is a da. Note that this consists of two spheres touching each other, so this is not to be read as stu. This is a ta, da with a d, yo, stu, 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 this sphere. This, let's say, half moon like number of dots is me, ko with a q, ko with a q again. You can see it more clearly here. Alright, ko, as we said, stu, 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 these two bracelets. Note here that they are like two spheres touching each other, so just under the breast, this is to be read as ta, the belt is stu, as we know, and then te, 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 and the pink one te. But note there is a V-like form here. This is a sa, te, te. We've all marked them with a different color. Sa again, te, te. And the whole woman is to be read as vo. Then you start again. The caterpillar is a te. Yo looks like a snake. Anything that is straight or looks like more or less straight is yo. The eye is stu. We've seen that here too. Three-stemmed plant. Re, 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 stu. There is a sphere here. Sa. And then the whole thing is a te again. Then we continue here. You go to this woman. Me, yo. Ko. Ko. They are like Q's. Stu, stu, the bracelets. Ro, the cross. Stu again. Te. Me, this is carved like a half moon, and since this and this touch each other, you first read this one, and then, so, me, and then you proceed to this one, which is ve. This one touches this one, this is stu. This one is in the same hand as the previous, so it is stu again. And then you proceed again. The sphere, stu, note the difference between these two. This is a ta, this is a stu. The belt, stu. This is not a te, this is a ro. They are like fishnets. They're not straight lines put together vertically, but they are rather crossing each other, so they are to be read as ro, lo. Ro, as we said, sa, te, te, sa, te, te, sa, te, te, all the way down. and then the whole woman is again to be read as vo. Then you go to this plant. Please note that the yellow marks 2 syllables. The first 3 parts, 1, 2, 3, the first 3 spheres are to be read as re, because plants with 3 stems at top are to be read as re or le. But then again, under it you have another V-like form, so you read it as a sa. And then the red one is again sa, re, sa, re, sa in the same manner, sa again, and then the whole thing is again to be read as te. Right? So, there is a small girl going upwards towards the sky. We'll see why this is. It's becoming a deity at that time. But let's stay in the reading part. Ve, it goes like a wave. Here, it goes like a wave, so it is to be read as ve. Stu, the sphere, 4 stews here. Stu, 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 stu. This thing touches her leg, is yo, this is yo, and they form an X form, so this is a re. Alright, back in the girl. Ve, the sphere, stu. There is a stu here that it's not very visible here, but it is more visible here. And then starts again another 4, making up 5 altogether. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one at top is 5 stews. The snake touches the foot, which is yo. The horn, the animal horn is yo. Again, it makes up a ro. And then the whole thing touches a triangle, which is a da. Then you go to the third woman. Stu, 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 as we say, me and me. Stu, again the red sphere, but note that this is no sphere, but it is like a half moon. Don't confuse it, it is a me, and then this looks like a Q. A Q with a sphere with a tail makes up a ko. Ko here again, stu, stu, te, te. And then the whole woman is to be read again as vo. Then you continue. Stu, stu, this is a ko because it has this long line hanging. These gems hanging from the bracelet make it to look like a Q form, so it's no longer a sphere. Ko, as we said, me, me, this is a ve. This is a ko again. This is another fishnet-like skirt, so it's not to be read as te, but it's rather to be read as ro, sa, te, yo. Note that there is a yo here in the middle. There is a straight line. Unlike these ones, there is a yo here. And then you say te, yo, and then te again to the next one. They all, then a sa, and they all together, I mean this sa and this straight line that we have pointed here, and you can see it also here, they make up a re. So then you go again, te, te, sa, te, te, and the whole thing is vo. So you end up here, and you can freeze it if you like, if you want to see it more detailed, and then the text is just as it follows. Sas is the one who has been saved. Theory, dative form, at the gate. Since I've barely been saved, it seemed that there were some clashes, that Minos was not the only one who wanted to ascend the throne, and there were many candidates who, of course, were not very polite or humanistic to each other. and there were some clashes, and then you see this name, Kritis. Crete was the daughter, small girl, who became the first wife of Minos and he made her his first wife so that he can become the heir to the throne of Asterios, Crete's father. But, as it says here, let's see what it says. Kritis, so of Crete, Meli, the members, it means the members of the body. She was dismembered in that clash. She was badly hit, lacerated, and it resulted to that her body was not only unrecognizable but also scattered through all around the place. Lexate in Greek, in modern Greek, it would be silexate, collect. So that I stand in the throne. So, since I've been barely saved at the gates, you collect the members of Crete and so that I stand. Because if you had a dead person back then, you had to honor them, and you just couldn't abandon the corpse, because he would come back as a ghost. Thus, Daios, Thisto, Stimi. So, the one, Daios, this is a name, a human's name, who has seen that. Thus, let him be sacrificed. Stimi, in other texts, it also means the mouth, but it also means the place where people were sacrificed, and many times it was the entrance of a cave, but not necessary. Gorgon, fast, so that I am established as a king as fast as possible. Again, he says it many times, because this text is not just a military text, it's also a magic text. And here we need to open some brackets and talk about these women. These women seem to be the equivalent of what we see in classical philology of the Maenads. The women who used on the mountains to be in a crazy, let's say, spiritual mode, and this happened because some of them would use some, let's say, plants who would make people have delusions, who would make people have different understandings of reality. So, since they were in altered reality, they were supposed to have metaphysical powers. And as we know, Minos indeed used to ascend the mountains, and he, in other cases, used to say that on the mountains he also met Zeus, who gave him laws written on tablets, just like it happened with Moses in the biblical scriptures. So it all means iconographically that they've been using these plants, and that these women were some kind on the side of Minos. So, let me stand. Stotas tuti thite. Alright? This is very interesting. So as for me to stand, let me stand. And so as for me to stand, you should sacrifice at this place. Τι θέσατε, bury at this place, bury Thesate, bury, he says it 2 times because if he only said it 1 time, it could be read as something different. So in order to clarify this thing, and he wants his orders to be as clear as possible, he says it 2 times. Sacrifice, sacrifice, and object in the sentence, thivon. So, you should sacrifice this man. Theos, the Holy One, the Sacred One, he refers to himself as the Sacred One. Theory, ritris, theory at the gates. Ritra or ritri in Ionian is some kind of promising, but it's also a written, of course, column that he could place. It's also a written column in Greek, so we can imagine that after defeating some people, he placed a column there, informing / warning people what happened to the ones who opposed him. Thisate. So at the gates of this column you should sacrifice. This is a complex syntax here. Thisate, and then you go gorgon quickly, and then you should sacrifice them at the gates as quickly as possible, so that me, the sacred man, will not, elas, stand, and then styros. What is this styros? It is, first of all, let me tell you that this is a very complex syntax because he is under big pressure and he wants to show it. It is not, it imitates a lot the informal speech, the spontaneous speech, more than it imitates, let's say, well-structured speech which has been planned beforehand and then written. So who is this Styros? Maybe German people call the bull as Stier. Stier. It's written as Stier, and it's in that form in many other languages too. We know the common theory that this S appearing before the Tyros is what we call the Indo-European S. We don't accept this theory, but according to the Indo-European theory, this is, let's say, a phantom S that comes and goes among words of different nations. We don't know why, they don't know why. So in some, let's say, languages you have it as styros or stier in German, but in some other languages or in some other Greek words you have it as tavros or toro in Spanish and so on. So you have it without an S. No way to explain it, but we have said many times why the Indo-European theory has many flaws, and these common elements in the words and sometimes in the syntax of many different languages in this family are probably to be explained not with the help of some theoretical language that is not to be proved with any archaeological means, but with the help of archaeological findings that show us that the Cretan navy had reached many different places around the Mediterranean, and not only in the Mediterranean, and that probably this, let's say, wave that they created traveled until many faraway places, like maybe Iceland or India. So we have talked a bit about the way that words were scattered in many different places, and this happened owing to the success of the Cretan, the Minoan campaigns, naval campaigns, and of course commercial expeditions. As it happened in many eras where there were commercial expeditions like the ones happening between the Byzantines and the Chinese, merchants don't just bring merchandise with them, they also bring their myths, their language, their way of seeing things. But why is this person, it's a human person, it's a human, why is he called the bull? We know from Plutarch, who was of course a priest in the Delphi sanctuary, but at the same time he was quite of a pragmatist, and he was always trying to look for the reality or the core of reality behind myths and symbols. We know from him that this man was a very brutal man. Probably in reality he was called the bull because he wore some kind of helmet or mask, and he would not just kill people but also molest them, torture them before that, and he was very cruel. So that's why Minos, who in many myths presents a more moderate kind of character, just doesn't want him to come there because that would mean also his own doom. So he says to T, in this land, me, not we. You should not come to this land. Let me stand, let me stand, let me stand. Who should not come? After these brackets, this person that we said, Styros. Ati, to the goddess Ati, let's say she was a kind of a goddess representing, until the classical years, the hatred of the gods towards somebody, or the, let's say, the cognitive situation which somebody had, like being arrogant before doing a crime, before committing a crime. And all these cognitive situations were incorporated, let's say, in the goddess Ati. So to this goddess, sacrifice, second time he says it, we said about this reduplication, Thivon. You should sacrifice him and dedicate him to this goddess. Tresas is the one, it's like it works like an adjective here, although it's a participle. It works like an attribute. The one who ran away. It seems that he had somebody, this Alexandris, the Alexandris is the one who ran away from his camp and made allies probably with his opponents. Axate, bring him here from the verb avo, bring him, and visto is come, let him come. He wants to point out not only that I want him to be here, but I want him to be brought by you with violent means. And he had his own plan for this man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times let me stand. Magical repetition. Vio, the son of Bios. Rhodas, so Rhodas, the son of Bios. Thisto, let him be sacrificed. Gorgon, quickly. We have annotated here with this arrow and replaced it, let's say, here so that we can make it easier for you, because the syntax once again is broken here. Thisto Gorgon, let him be sacrificed quickly. Stimi, at the place of sacrifices. Mi stimi, so not at the sacrificial place I stay, so that I will not stand in this sacrificial place. Because if he prevails, if my opponents prevail, the one that will eventually stand on this place to be sacrificed is me, Minos. And then again sto. No, I'm sorry, we interpreted that. Sto, let me stand. Ti Thivos Thisto. At this place, let Thivos be sacrificed. Cosmi, mi visto chorus. Cosmi, what is this cosmi? Okay. In these very early times, but also in more classical times, like in the kingdom of Epirus, but also in other places of Europe in much later times, like Germany, there was some kind of, let's say, of a council. This council at the beginning was the senators. Don't forget what a senator means the old one. This council was the parts of this council were people of older age, and in that time this kind of council is called Cosmi, and it seems that this Minos had some kind of political dialogue, and he was being more liked than the other candidates. So, at the council, not to go choros, you know it from classical Greek as kouros, a new boy, let's say, a boy at his young age. So, the one who should go, let's say, as a king in this council to talk with them directly is not a boy that can substitute me, but instead me. Why does he point this out? Because probably he had, not probably, certainly he had his own kind of opposition. His opponents would say he is a very troubled mind. His mental situation is not very nice. He is unstable. He says that he talks with Zeus. He says that he can have dialogues with the Maenads. He is a friend with the Maenads. That says a lot about his mentality. And in order to avoid that another young person would be presented as, let's say, a candidate by his opponents, and in order to avoid his opponents saying to the let's say senators that, okay, look at him, he is much more appropriate for this, he points this out. No young boy should go at the council. Atin iondes, or ati in dative, but it's not very easy to say that, but I think it's Atin because it's very common back then to use an accusative form in order to point out direction. Atin iondes, after you go to the Ati, areti, with virtue, Thesate, bury, Thivon. You should bury this man, Thivos, with virtue and all the appropriate religious rituals. Because you can imagine that there are many clashes, people hate people, they do bury their enemies so that their enemies will not come back as ghosts, so that their gods will not hate them for leaving people unburied, but at the same time, since the dead enemies remain enemies and they are not liked at all, you can imagine that his troops also would say many curses as they would bury him, they would do things, and so on. So you should bury this man with virtue, so as not to anger the goddess. And who is this Thivos? Thivos also means what we see later as pharmakos. Pharmaki in ancient times were people who would just take the crimes of the whole city upon them and then be executed. They would, let's say, treat them well for a year, they would feed them, they would do them any favor they liked, but at the end they would be executed so that the crimes of the city and the sins of the city, which now were on these pharmaki or on these TV, would vanish with them. So it's not just an execution or a burial, it's just a magical ritual that has to be done with virtue, otherwise the sins will not be taken to the underworld with him, but instead will remain as a burden. So we see a Minos trying to do politics with mortal people, but also with the gods. He tries to appease the gods, he tries to gain, to lead away from the Senate his opponents, and he tries to gain the throne for himself after having his young wife, which is now going upwards and is becoming a deity, let's say, amidst the Maenads. And as I said, he's trying, after having his young wife killed, to stabilize the situation. And as we know, he stabilized the situation. He was more preferable than others. Many myths show that he was a more moderate kind of ruler, but moderate is not today's moderate, it's that time's moderate. Anyways, he was more moderate, he was more, let's say, stable, less violent, not in this text, of course, and he prevailed. It's interesting. It's not only interesting, but it's also horrific to find such a text. It has been a long way. I would like to thank you. I'm deeply moved myself. And I would like to thank our kind photographer, because all these efforts would be in vain if it were not for his own technical support and his moral support. And until next time, I wish you all the best. Thank you.